Okay, so let's get into it. We're going to unpack one of the most visually shocking and just emotional moments in the entire Second World War.
We really are.
We're talking about the winter of 1942. That exact moment when the first huge waves of American troops landed in Britain.
And it wasn't just a military reinforcement. It was a societal earthquake.
A total earthquake.
It's the deepest contrast you can possibly imagine. For the British people, this was this sudden, almost jarring shift from gray, desperate survival to the arrival of this dazzling Technicolor American abundance. So our mission for this deep dive is to really feel that shock, the human and sensory part of it. The moment the New World literally arrived to save the old.
And to really feel that, you have to rewind a little. You have to put yourself in Britain in late 1941. It's hard for us to imagine the sheer exhaustion of the nation.
They had been standing alone for 2 very, very long years, and the cost of that was just staggering. They were running on fumes, and physically, the nation was bled white.
The diaries from that time, they're all so consistent. They describe people as being gray, as shrinking inside their clothes.
And that shrinking wasn't just a metaphor, was it? It was literal.
No, not at all. It was the rationing. You have to understand, fresh fruit had basically become a legend, a memory from before the war.
Absolutely. The British diet was about survival, not enjoyment. Things like the infamous Woolton pie.
Oh, the Woolton pie.
It was basically a crust filled with whatever root vegetables they could find and powdered egg. Years of that had genuinely changed how people looked. They were malnourished.
And the cities looked how the people felt. Rubble everywhere. The scars of the bliss were still so raw. Walking through London, you just smelled brick dust and damp. It was a nation running on sheer willpower. And that weight, all that desperation, it really fell on one man.
Winston Churchill.
His entire focus, almost his only focus, was dragging the United States into the war. We know he sent over 1,700.
Yeah.
Yes, 1,700 personal letters to Roosevelt, begging. And he had that sort of pleading signature he used, right?
A former naval person.
That's the one. It was his way of bypassing the official channels, just appealing directly to FDR. It really shows you that he felt the survival of his country rested on that one single relationship.
It was life or death. So when Pearl Harbor finally happened, Churchill famously said he slept the sleep of the saved and thankful.
But that was still just a concept, right? A strategic victory on paper.
Exactly. It was still abstract. They needed to see it, to see the troops, feel the boots on the ground. They needed proof that American might was actually real.
And then, in January 42, the proof arrives. The ships pull in, and GIs start appearing on the streets of London. And for the people who saw them, it wasn't like seeing an ally.
No.
It was like seeing an invasion of creatures from another planet.
That exact phrase, it's used over and over in British accounts. They looked like Hollywood film stars walking out of the fog.
Because they basically came from a different world, a world that hadn't been starving for 2 years.
And the physical difference is maybe the most stunning part. The Americans were, on average, inches taller and pounds heavier than the British men.
You see it in the little details.
The teeth.
Their teeth. People were just blown away by how straight and white their teeth were. A result of a diet and dental care that was just, a fantasy in wartime Britain.
And the way they moved, their whole bearing was different.
Yeah, that swagger. Londoners sort of shuffled to save energy. The GIs had this loose-limbed, easy, confident walk. It was the walk of someone who's never had to worry where their next meal is coming from.
Even their uniforms were a shock. The British Tommy wore this rough, patched-up khaki. The Americans show up in pristine, tailored, high-quality wool. They looked rich because their country was rich.
But I think the detail that really gets me, the thing that sticks with you, is what they smelled like.
Yes, the constant observation that they smelled rich.
What a phrase.
It was this combination of expensive soap, good American tobacco.
And the big one.
And that sweet, minty scent of peppermint chewing gum.
It was the smell of abundance. It was this scent invading a world that had forgotten what abundance even was. It must have been intoxicating.
And that smell, that abundance, it leads us right to the culture clash. Because this wasn't just about looks. It was about cold, hard math.
The money. Let's talk about the money, because this is where the friction really starts.
An American private, just a basic GI, was paid roughly 5 times more than his British counterpart.
5 times. That's an impossible gap to bridge.
And you saw it play out every night in the pubs. The GIs could just flood the pubs, buying rounds for everyone. The British soldier, on his tiny wage, just couldn't compete.
And then there's all the stuff they brought with them. It was like they were walking PX stores. They had real Hershey bars, not that waxy brown stuff the British were making.
Instant coffee, which was unheard of.
All right.
But the real magic bullet, the ultimate currency,
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
was nylon stockings.
The nylons. Unobtainable in Britain since 1940, all nylon production went to parachutes. Suddenly, these guys are just handing them out.
It was a more valuable currency than the pound sterling. It was this symbol of America's insane, almost frivolous industrial capacity.
While Britain could barely make enough food, America could make enough bombers and enough stockings to completely upend the dating scene in London.
And then the simplest symbol of all,
The gum.
chewing gum. For British kids who hadn't seen sweets for years, the GIs were like gods. They learned one phrase almost instantly.
Got any gum, chum?
Yeah.
It just perfectly sums up the whole culture shock in 4 simple words.
It really does.
But of course, all this abundance, it did fuel some real resentment among the British troops.
A lot of resentment. They had held the line, they'd survived the Blitz, and now these tanned, well-fed movie stars show up with their money and their chocolate.
And sweep the local women off their feet.
This tension could have been really dangerous for the Alliance, but it was channeled, thankfully, into humor, into sarcasm.
Which, of course, gives rise to that famous biting quote.
The one that spread through every single British barracks.
Exactly. The trouble with the Yanks.
Is they're overpaid, oversexed, and over here.
It's just brilliant. It's so angry and so perfect.
But the Americans had their own comeback, which was just as sharp.
The trouble with the Brits is they're underpaid, undersexed, and under Eisenhower.
Which is such a perfect encapsulation of the power dynamic, right? They're basically saying, yeah, well, we're in charge now.
That banter, it was probably necessary to get through it all. But beneath the jokes, the arrival of the GIs represented a fundamental strategic certainty.
And that certainty brings us to this real climax moment.
The big parade. The American military, knowing how important morale was, organized a huge formal march through the heart of London. Thousands of troops right down the mall.
You have to picture the scene. It's a gray, cold day in 1942. And Churchill, the British bulldog, the man who had stared down Hitler, is watching from a window at the Admiralty. He's totally silent.
He's just waiting. And then he hears it. That rhythmic, disciplined thud of thousands of American boots on the pavement. He sees the endless columns of these healthy, confident young men, and that's when it hits him.
The people standing near him said he just started to weep. Openly. He pulled out a handkerchief, wasn't ashamed at all. But these weren't tears of sadness.
No, they were tears of pure relief.
Overwhelming release. The crushing weight of carrying the entire free world on his shoulders for 2 years. It was finally being lifted. He knew he wasn't alone anymore.
He was also a numbers guy, right? He was doing the math.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He wasn't just seeing soldiers. He was calculating industrial capacity. He was seeing the limitless manpower of America marching past his window. And he knew in that instant that Hitler had made a fatal mistake. There was no way Germany could ever defeat this.
And right at that moment, he turns to his staff and says the line that just sums it all up.
When I see these young men, I know we're going to win this war.
He'd been saying it in private since Pearl Harbor. We have won, after all. But this was the moment he truly believed it. He saw it.
It was the psychological turning point. That parade was the moment victory became a certainty.
But there's a deeper meaning to that march, isn't there? It's more than just victory.
Oh, much deeper. It was the formal, visible passing of a torch. The exhausted British Empire had done its part. It had held the line. But the job of winning the war and leading the world after was being handed over.
To the rising American superpower.
Churchill knew it. He saw it all. His feelings were incredibly bittersweet. He saw salvation, but he also saw dependence.
He had that quote comparing it to watching your son grow taller than you.
Exactly. You're proud, you're grateful for his strengths, but you're also mourning the passing of your own prime.
That's the tragedy inside the triumph. The war saved Britain, but it also sealed its fate as a secondary power.
The price of salvation. But Churchill didn't wallow. He knew the old lion, though tired, still had teeth, and would fight alongside these new giants to the very end.
It's just an incredible arc. To go from the gray despair of rationing and the Blitz to the swaggering confidence of the GIs, smelling of peppermint gum. It's a total shift in morale and in global destiny.
And it leaves you with a really provocative thought, doesn't it? The question isn't whether America helped win the war. Of course it did. The real question is, when Britain was praying for America to join the fight, did they truly understand they were also praying for their own inevitable decline?
That the price of salvation was the end of their time at the top.
The end of the empire's prime. A massive, world-altering trade.
The cultural and political imprints left by those giants are still with us today. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.